Click the links to join the channel here over at SubScribe. So the Acolyte trailer preview thing came out. It got a lot of downvotes, which I thought Google took away the downvotes because Biden got in office, so they had to stop allowing feedback to show how unpopular those policies are. And I think didn't Netflix do the same thing when Schumer, what's her face, had some comedy special and it just got nuked from orbit, so they turned off the star review, so you can't see that she got like a half a star. Amy Schumer. Anyway, so the Acolyte trailer came out. Did not look good from Weinstein's assistant Leslie Headland making the show. So first of all this stuff is not occurring in a vacuum. We don't want whatever Disney is pushing. I was going to say we don't want femcells, but it's more than that. And this guy's got a great article. Maybe I'll read it at the end just to drag out that time. So the short version is, no, you can't make Star Wars as non-white as they're making it. If you're an SJW, please tune out and unsubscribe. For Star Wars to be Star Wars, it has to match the vibe of A New Hope in 1977, which the left wing does not want to admit. Dealing with reality is hard for them, and they can ignore it, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring it. There is a willing suspension of disbelief with Star Wars. The audience accepted the 77 universe, and it was a massive hit. No matter how politically correct you want to be, the universe of the story is set in stone. If you change it, you make something that is not Star Wars. It's something else. If Star Wars had started as a Japanese show, it would have had to have maintained that vibe. Star Wars did have a few other non-European, non-fair-skinned actors. YouTube's a little funny about calling colors for some reason. But it was a ratio that must be maintained, so it feels the same. It's not an issue of good or bad. It is what it is. That is the story universe, the canon of the story, the vibe. You must maintain that. And when you stretch it, Disney has stretched it into the breaking point. The thing is, the audience wants to see the universe of Luke, Han, Leia, and Obi-Wan, and Darth Vader, and their pet dog. If the demographics change, people know the reason is to make it woke. It's not organic. The main concept is none of this is happening in a vacuum. That's why you're unable to do things, because there's an outside real world group of people that are aware of this, the rest of this culture war. So an organic story doesn't change to accommodate current standards of political correctness, which, change from year to year. That should not even be a consideration for someone who's writing a story. Representation kills story. As this guy's great. There's a lot of good stuff on Twitter. You just gotta find it. When Hollywood puts a non-European character in, it represents that group. Thus, if you have a POC, a Pox character, it has to be a Mary Sue. And over the years, people are aware of this. They know that if they literally see black or blonde hair versus blonde hair, well, you can tell you who the protagonist and the antagonist is going to be, because it really is correlated that closely to literally just the hair color. It doesn't make a very fun show when there's no suspension of disbelief. It's like what was it that there's an Italian storytelling structure, Faramouche. Do you do the Fandango? And I think they used these characters and they just kind of told the same, different stories but with the same characters. It was an Italian, I don't know, structure that they used, and it's like a cliche, but it kind of works if you bring something a little bit fresh, but people know what to expect, and it worked out really well. I don't know, maybe it's like it's like any one of a 1,000 romantic comedies. It's like they're telling the same story, just with different actors. See, this has been going on for much longer than you think, and people think, oh, I remember the classic fun 80s movies, and they didn't do this. They did, but it was softer. And when you were watching those 80s movies, you were just too young to really pick up on most of it. Now add in current year super woke, BLM, Trump derangement syndrome, globalist politics. The audience knows that if they see a non-white woman now, it's not worth watching. And like big channels are not going to say that kind of stuff. If POC, then you're just not going to watch it. But that's the reality on the ground. It's you're going to have to be a little bit politically incorrect to speak the truth here. And the Acolyte trailer had a bunch of women in it doing Matrix style jumping kicks. Matrix was 25 years ago now. I saw it in the theaters. Or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Nobody wants to see women in these action roles. And I think there's a trans character. Apparently, I don't know how big the role is. The trans thing isn't really an issue because nobody's going to watch The Acolyte anyway. Okay, my prediction is that it's going to be the lowest rated Disney streaming show, and it's like number 8 or 9. The first one I think was The Mandalorian, which was a pretty good size hit. Had Gina Carano. People slowly got on board with it. Oh, and then they fired Gina Carano. Oh, that was kind of Disney's pivot point to turn their ship around. I think they're in trouble. So black lesbian girl power is just not going to sell Disney Plus subscriptions. Girl power, don't need a man. Pass. We're beyond done with girl power. Star Wars should look at the original. Art is timeless. It doesn't need to be updated. Just make it look like 77 Star Wars. Yes, that means you don't have black lesbians, or even in that case, you don't have trans characters. But I don't know how well. I don't know how they would stand out if they. I mean, if they passed as an actor. I hate to defend the trans. But if they passed, I mean, it's like actors play different characters all the time. In fact, if you go back far enough, men were playing both male and female roles back in Shakespeare days. Anyway, but that means you can't have any black lesbians or the whole girl power. The story vibe was created in 77 New Hope. You have to stick with it. And if they did, they would have been successful, and the merchandise would have been massively successful. It's not. People look at the movies and go, $4 billion. How well the theme parks doing because of that? The Disney Star Wars. How well are the toy sales? How well are the T-shirts? I was thinking, if you were selling T-shirts now, the 3 iterations of Star Wars, the original, then the George Lucas prequels in the late 90s, and then the Disney stuff, and you had a T-shirt with Princess Leia with the 70s kind of hippy-dippy rainbow theme, and the Wookiee holding up the blaster, and then you had the modern Star Wars. I bet you that 77 Princess Leia with her hair in the buns and the blaster, looking at Han or something, I bet you that T-shirt would sell better than either the Lucas prequels or the new Disney stuff. Because that was powerful. The original was powerful enough to build this empire, and what did Disney do? Well, they absolutely destroyed it because they don't give a shit about Star Wars. They don't give a shit about anything. Everything is just a vehicle to push globalist propaganda. So they could have been rolling in like $10 billion of profit instead of having. I don't know if Star Wars has even paid for itself yet. So Disney diversity destroys shows because they're only there to own the Chad Hugo Boss who aren't watching anyway. How well did She-Hulk? We owned the Chad Nazis on She-Hulk. We showed them their Elon Musk character and the guru, the tech guy. Yeah, but you didn't get a second season. Yeah, but that's all it boils down to. Or Willow or all the other woke crap that got like one episode or one series. So look at what 77 Star Wars looked like. Disney Star Wars should look like that. It was a vibe. Once you diversify it, you have changed it. I saw like Corvette Summer was playing on YouTube. I looked at it like I think I have it on DVD actually. I don't think I can watch Corvette Summer. It was Mark Hamill's film in between Star Wars or something. So it's okay to admit diversity is a globalist cancer that destroys stories because the rest of the audience might not say it, but they believe it because the stuff isn't selling. You can make a list of all the recent since like 2016 Ghostbusters and the bombs that happened from there. So here's a little thought experiment for the woke anti-whites. Take your diversity movie, change all the characters to European, so both the protagonist and antagonist look roughly the same. Is the movie as good for you? It's better for me because I know diversity is cancer in storytelling. But for leftists, diversity is the selling point. But it's not exactly that because it's European blonde as antagonists and non-Europeans as protagonists, so it's not exactly diversity. That's just a globalist cover. Another experiment. Take the woke movies that the left wing claims to love. Now swap the races of the pro and antagonists, i.e., make the non-whites the evil character. Suddenly the leftist loses their mind because that's going on the presumption that in modern movies, blonde man, blue-eyed is going to be the bad character. If you ask them, can you make a few movies with the pox, POC, as the evil, violent, racist, istophobic criminal, and they flatly cannot fit it in their BuzzFeed, Mary Sue, Kotaku worldview. Though Kotaku's having a little bit of shakeup. I guess it's kind of another video, but I think the Sweet Baby Incorporated thing is having some repercussions because Kotaku management came out and said that they want more. They're switching from, like, this just happened this morning, where they're switching from the long form articles about the SJW stuff to game guides. So and they're like Alyssa Merchant or Mercante or something is on Twitter right now losing her mind over it. Anyway, people are like, learn to code? So stories have to be organic, otherwise they're propaganda. If you can't randomly assign race to the characters or make them all the same, then there's something else going on with racial propaganda. And you know, it's the same thing. I'm not saying, oh, make all the Chinese characters the bad guys. It's like, well, that's the same mistake. You can't do that. Here's a radical thought for these globalists in Hollywood. Just treat everyone equally. And they look at you and go, that's a bridge too far. We just can't do that. I was reading the Mary Sue, and the girl was saying she was surprised some movie wasn't getting a sequel. I think it maybe the elements with the or elemental with or the Eternals with Salma Hayek, and she goes, that movie's not getting a sequel. It had a lot of diversity. But the more diversity there is in a movie, the less of an audience it has. That's just objectively true. And girl power leads almost never sell. Every once in a while, there's an Aliens that'll come through, or the original Terminator with Sarah Connor, Madam Web, The Marvels, The Eternals, Black Widow, Ghostbusters 2016, even Black Adam. It didn't have a female in the lead, but she was a major role in it, the single mom or something. Yeah, that bombed as well. Ghostbusters 2016, the latest Charlie's Angels, the latest Terminator, the latest X-Men, which focused on women, I guess. I honestly, I didn't get through more than a few minutes of that. Girl power stuff just doesn't sell because men are not women. And yet they keep making these Larry Fink checklist bullshit movies. It really makes you reevaluate your assumptions as to motive. The other issue is that this is not happening in a vacuum. That's the most important thing. People are aware of how anti-white Disney is and Hollywood in general. If you're a leftist, of course you disagree, but your perception is irrelevant. The aggrieved party is the only relevant issue. Let me explain. Presumably, you're already committed to paying Disney plus subscriptions if you're a leftist. So as a factor, you're off the table. You've already committed. The potential subscriber who sees Disney as racist is the relevant money at play. And right now, they're not supporting Disney. There's also the issue of Disney grooming kids and DeSantis in Florida and all that kind of stuff. That it kind of feels like that's been forgotten. But you know, that one movie I mentioned, I think it was Elemental, was an animation with a mixed couple, and the kids were under the age of 18. And they were gay kids in a gay relationship in a Disney movie. Like, what's wrong, bigot? Yeah, you just fuck off at that. So what Disney needs to do now is to start making some pro-white Christian nationalist movies and shows, which is laughable, so it's moot. They would slit their wrists before they did that. When I say this Acolyte movie is not in a vacuum, you can see the trailer on YouTube. When the viewer sees pox females, or even females, okay, enough. I was going to say females in general. If you had some blonde-haired, blue-eyed chick with big milkers, who's that girl who's in the Sweeney or something, some hot blonde chick, maybe you're going to get a second look. But if it's not that, when you see I think a black chick who's playing kind of a Sith character. And the thing is, so the viewer knows it's woke, and it's just an instant no, because it always is going to be woke. And now here's the thing. If the culture were outside the movie universe, the real world was different, this movie would be just fine. But you can't, it's not in a vacuum. If this thing came out in 1980, it would probably be a decent sized hit, but it's not 1980, it's current year. People are very aware of the fighting that's going on outside. Acolyte is going to bomb. It's probably going to be the lowest viewed show. And if I'm wrong about that, you know what? I do have a Star Wars Essential Chronology: The Definite History of Star Wars by Kevin J. Anderson, Daniel Wallace. Maybe if someone gets to this point in the video, and what time is it? 15 minutes. The first to email me, if I'm wrong about that, I can mail you this book. I don't think people usually get to 15 minutes of the video, but it is. I started reading it last night. It is very good. It's used, but it's a cool little introduction. It was written like 24 years ago. So let me ask you: are non-European women your audience? Do black women watch Star Wars? Are they the bulk of your audience? No, of course not. I haven't looked at the demographics. I'm assuming no. So why are you pandering to an audience that doesn't exist? People want to see themselves represented. They always the left wing always pushes that concept. And you know when they make Madam Web and they make the Marvels with Brie Larson's Captain Marvel sequel. Okay, so you've got your diverse women. So did diverse women go, or women in general, go see these movies? No, absolutely not. Then why are you making these movies? That's a good question. That's a really good question, but it's not a question that's going to get answered on YouTube. That kind of stuff is for SubScribeStar. Always shilling. It's $2 a month. So Disney Star Wars streaming has got like 8 shows out. I think they've all underperformed or bombed. Maybe The Mandalorian with Gina Carano before they fired her was, I think that was the turning point, the pivot point where Star Wars could have turned it around, and they chose not to. We're going to fire Gina Carano. Oh, you know, the crowd really kind of likes her. Yeah, fuck her. Oh, okay. And you're going to have like a fight with DeSantis in Florida and grooming kids, and kind of a weird direction Disney's going in. You're like, are you sure you want to be committed to this direction? Bob Chapek and Bob Iger? Like, you bet your sweet ass we're committed to this. Anyway, I don't know if you're watching the screen. I could read this, but it's like another, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. What is it? 2-minute read. Yeah, but reading it aloud is pretty long. So he's going through the concept of what I said is you shouldn't have external factors controlling your story. Stories should be absolutely organic. And most of the time, stories are not going to be as diverse as Hollywood wants them to be. That's the real world. So they're not telling organic stories. They're telling nothing more than propaganda. And like I said, once you put a Pox character in there, marginalize and oppress and disenfranchise all these Bolshevik Frankfurt School words that don't mean anything. They're not true. Then you can't treat the characters equally because you put them up on a pedestal. So who can be a nuanced character? Who can have positives and negatives and character growth and a character arc? Oh, you better be blonde-haired and blue-eyed. You're the only character who's this godlike character who can come from behind and have full character growth. He doesn't have to start off as a Mary Sue. Where in Disney Star Wars in 2015 with the Daisy Ridley character, I don't remember her name, she was like pretty much a space Jesus almost right from the start. Where you compared her to Luke, yes, Luke's a Mary Sue too. Every lead character is going to be in some degree. But compare and contrast the two movies, and you've got Daisy Ridley levitating in midair, doing flips. I guess she had some training from Luke, but Luke was in the story canon was a super Jedi. Luke and Vader were like the top of the food chain, and so you're saying, oh well, someone came along who's even further along than him. It's kind of like escalating powers. They do it in comic books. They kind of run into trouble with it. It's and those movies absolutely. I say they bombed. Yes, I know they made billions of dollars, but for what they could have made, they probably lost another $4 billion. And the people at Disney know this because the merchandise, the T-shirts, and the toy sales, that was probably another, say, net $2 billion net that they didn't make. Disney Star Wars is a huge loss for Disney. And these left-wing kids look at it, and it's like they're the same crowd that looks at a movie and say the budget for a movie was like $200,000 and the advertising was $100,000. And the kids see this movie and they go, oh, look, the movie made $250 million, $200 million. And they go, got its money back. It's like, no, dude, they don't go to the theater and make 100% of the theater take, and the foreign take's not 100% either. It's like all these different, you're only taking some of the theater take domestically. It's a higher take, but foreign, you're not taking much at all. It's like you got to do the math. That's why they have those figures like 2 to 3 times the cost, because you're paying. People don't understand. They're paying like $100 million in ads, and that's what it's like. Like a movie can make $500 million and still bomb. And these like left wing kids don't kind of understand any of that stuff. But it's like like they don't care about the movies. This is all just part of the culture war. That's like why the old Star Wars and the Disney the old Star Wars was generation, I don't know, Generation X and older is people over 40. 40 to 60 was original Star Wars. And then when Disney Star Wars came out, it's like the grandkids and the kids who were trying to defend it because it was new and woke. And it's like, yeah, but it didn't create an empire. So the original stuff did. How well did those what's that, Rose Tico dolls? How well did those toys sell? Oh, they didn't sell at all. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.